I don't know if the Red Hood mangaka has done anything before. I think someone said that like he used to be an assistant for Horikoshi. All I can say is it's pretty funny is that you can somewhat see the interests of a manga based off of like the consistent like types of characters that they like to make. Like for instance, so though Oda like he likes to make really weird looking characters, and then he likes to make them either like really jacked or like real big and busty. And I think a lot of mangaka like to do like big and busty types, but like you can tell like certain types and variables in their whole setup that they definitely enjoy just based off of what they're doing. And so far, the Red Hood guy, he's just making these chicks like thick as crazy numbers. Like, even though Grim isn't like she's not like a giant, like this girl has to be. Let me go look for a panel right now, like just off of like her standing next to somebody. What's this girl's name? Dolbanair, I think that they said like her name was in this chapter, but she looks gigantic. She looks like she's like 9 feet tall, like probably more. There's like a part where you can see like her directly stand next to Velu, and she's on her knee and still like a good foot taller than Velu. So she's probably like 10 plus feet tall or something ridiculous. But this is a character right here. So they're at Ironworks, and essentially like it's a one thing they said that this is training facility, I think 21, so they've got at least 20 other places like this. I figured the Hunters Guild was actually going to be way smaller, like some like wooden tavern, and there were going to be like a couple dozen people, but they have to be huge at this point considering they've got at least 20 other facilities like this. Their funds must be immense. Like it makes sense, like if they're not going to be like some small secretive one, it would just make sense for like the layout of the world that they're a much larger grand system, because logically speaking, at that point, like everybody's gonna be, looking after them. And when I was thinking more of their size being smaller, it was back when it was more of like just the werewolves. But if there's monsters all over the place, then clearly the Hunters Guild is going to be something that a lot more people are going to need, around just to take care of these creatures. And we get information on just like what's going to go on with Ironworks. Essentially, it's like a 3-day or 3-month endurance camp. You are allowed to give up whenever you want, but they'll give you a boat to row home, but you have to pretty much do it on your own. I wonder if there's a point where they can kick you out, or if there's like a determination factor, like even if you're lagging behind, if you're still kind of putting in the effort and like still kind of like maybe like still making progress, you could still kind of stay there. That would make sense to me, because like even if you're not like at the peak at where you're at, like if you could still like if you're still determined to be a beneficial factor in like wherever you're at, you can still be useful for a team. Like even if say you have a guy who's just really good, like his whole job is literally reloading the guns, like he's amazing at like reload speed. Even if it's like that guy's not a fighter, it's like wow, that's such a useful support ability that like and skill you can have, that like you can have somebody in the back just constantly keeping people's rounds going and keep everyone moving. Like it's just another like a piece of machine. Really, when you think about it, it's not just the ones up in the front that are the valuable ones. You also have to go into essentially everything moving and involved in it, because it's all one big fluid system. And like the better all the pieces move, the better the like the total output is going to be. But this girl, she's running her camp, and I'm so curious if like when you look at all this, like in their world, like obviously like when you see like some of their crazy training things and feats they're doing, like some of it's crazy to like real life people. Like they're doing for the most part pretty regular things. Like they've got what looks just to be like lots of chin ups and like assembling guns, pulling like heavy mine carts and like cooking and stuff. They have one where it's like you're on a tightrope with a balancing stick, like over the ocean. That's the only one that was just like all these other ones look difficult. Like I'm not gonna be like I could do this easy, but like those are the ones that I could see myself like at least attempting. But like the one where you're over the water, I mean, in this world, you probably are gonna have like way crazier like physical capabilities. Like somebody being superhuman is probably way less common, or way less uncommon in their world than it is in real life. Like you probably meet some people, like we already see, was it Milty and Tilty, like they have superhuman stats already, and they're at like the threshold that maybe like getting in there and doing stuff. So I would assume other people can do that just as not easily, but just as realistically. And Vayla's only like a week in. He meets like this old guy who ends up like leaving as well. He's like saying how his family were like killed by werewolves, but he wanted to go in, but he ends up getting, he ends up just going home after like a week. Obviously, it's just, he's quote unquote an old dude, so he's just not staying there. And there was one dude that's like there. He's like saying how they should get jacked in order to kind of keep going. They got to get bigger and stronger. And he's old then, so maybe at least as of right now, like the physical endurance is definitely looking good on him. I'm wondering when they get to something that might involve like an actual monster, where it's gonna test his mental fortitude, because like that's the thing I mentioned. I think it was my last review that one thing, at least from what I've seen and like heard about stuff like Navy SEALs, is the physical training is only 10% of like their boot camp, because like a lot of them go there already really physically fit. They're gonna have gone there like the guys that aren't going there already prepared physically are gonna be struggling from the start. But for the most part, like you're gonna have a lot of guys that go there already physically prepared and ready for that aspect of it. But they end up training them mentally very much more so. It's like, I think they said 10% physical, 90% mental training, because the mental stress is way more difficult for them to handle. Because anyone, like realistically, anybody can, not in this way that it's like it takes no effort to do, but like anybody can like work out and do certain things. Physically, it just takes a certain level of determination and dedication to do it. Whereas the mental strain for certain scenarios, not everybody can do. Like you can take the most physically like perfect specimen, put him in something that could like just like completely gnaw away at his psyche, and he could fail that. But you could take a guy who's like only half as physically capable of him, but if he's able to withstand any form of mental strain, and especially like you can think of like work scenarios in real life, but think about like in this world, you come across and you're seeing like people getting eaten and whatnot, being torn apart by monsters. It's gonna mess with your head even more so. But at the end of the chapter, we see Vayla. He's like a little bit like upset but determined after seeing the old guy go. And we got a really weird part. We had the witch and the werewolf that were from the previous chapter that destroyed the hamlet, and they're talking to an old guy, and it seems to be the mayor. And that was a really weird thing. Like when we saw like the witch and the werewolf like watch him, I was like, okay, I can see that them monitoring him because like the werewolf took interest in him. But the mayor being alive, like I'm wondering so much like where that plot twist is gonna go, especially like this early. It's really weird. But at the same time, like I really want to see where this just progresses and where this leads to, because it was a really weird just reveal to drop at this point in the story. So anyway, other than that though, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this. Like it was a really easy to read chapter, mostly summarized on a couple of things. There wasn't like a bunch of crazy stuff happening. It was more just kind of like a build up and like laying out the scenario kind of chapter, but solid stuff nonetheless. Anyway, other than that though, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. But that, appreciate every subscribe, and thank you all for listening. Bye.